believe. Let's see. With any luck, I am streaming right now. I know that Facebook and Periscope do it pretty almost close to immediately. And YouTube sometimes takes a few seconds to get going. And it looks like YouTube is online now as well. So very cool. Greetings and aloha. What's going on? It's Mike's from livemyassoff.com. I am here at my new condo in Bangkok. And I've got some new microphones. And I'm streaming on YouTube, Periscope, and Facebook. And hopefully it sounds good. I'm hoping to be able to, what I would love to be able to do, oh, and so this is me. You've seen one of these guys before. In the background there is my camera that's basically just resting on my balcony. So that's the pool beneath me. It's quite beneath me, really. Anyway, so what I'm doing here is I'm doing the live stream with my laptop, and I am hoping that this will turn into something that I can do later on. Now, to be fair, it is 10:30 back east on the East Coast, but 7:30 West Coast. It's also Saturday night for you guys, so I understand that people have lives, and that you're not necessarily up and awake. But it's 10:30 in the morning here on a Sunday, and so I thought I would just sort of check in and do a live stream and see how this works. I may edit it down later, or I may completely delete it, should this not work fantastically. So, it looks like the stream on Facebook is pretty decent, and the delay is not significant. So there we go. And yeah, Restream is what I'm using right now. So this allows me basically with a fairly inexpensive laptop. Thank you for the thumbs up. And $20 in microphone. I got this, so I don't know if you guys do any sort of audio or video. Boya is a fairly well-respected microphone audio company, let's just say. And they make some pretty nice wireless gear. And I almost went UHF wireless. So they're like basically the wireless packs that you see that are on the cameras. That are out in the field, you know, for like live shots for TV, and they're pretty sweet. This one, interestingly enough, I just wanted to get a lavaliere mic, but for whatever reason, they only had the one that had two lavaliere mics. Now it's one jack, but it's two mics, and they both seem to work at the same time, and there's no on-off. But it comes with about 10 meters of cord. But I've tested it out, and it seems as though the audio quality is pretty decent. I do recognize the fact that I get some echo here because the condo is concrete and with hardwood floors. And, you know, I don't have any art hanging on the wall, so it is what it is. But nonetheless, the audio quality is definitely better, I would submit, than what was happening inside of the with just the laptop mic. So I think this will be better. So for the most part, I've been here a week, and I've got some. Good morning, and you to your family po. Salamat po. It's funny, so Gracie's in the Philippines right now. She's over in Hamandan, and she's getting her shop ready. Or actually, by now, the shop is fully ready for the day at 10:30 in the morning. And so the shop is pretty cool, and she and I have talked quite a bit about what to do with it. She has some great ideas, and she wants to expand it. and maybe like kind of double it in size. So I hope she does that. She goes live on Facebook quite a bit, actually, with what she's doing over there in the shop, and so that helps to like sort of advertise. Magandang umaga. Or actually, what time is it? Magandang gabi? Oh, no, it's 11:30 for you, right? So, anyway, but so I've been here. I mean, it's our condo, but I've been here. Gracie's still in the Philippines, but I've been here for a week now, and I really dig it. It's infinitely quieter than it was in our last place, and it's cheaper. So that's really cool, because I don't know about you guys, but when I'm somewhere that I don't like, or I'm around something, or I have an item that I don't like, and I pay attention to the cost of it. But when I have something that I really like, I still, from the USA, right on, Joe. I didn't know where you were in the USA, cool. Then I soon forget the cost, actually. And, you know, even if there's like sort of sticker shock when I buy something, if it's of such high quality, then I soon forget the cost if the quality is really there. So, but the nice thing here is that the quality is great and the cost is low. So, Gracie and I, it's about 40 square meters and we're paying $400 a month. My internet, as I've mentioned to people, Matt, what's going on, man? Good to hear you. Good to see you. And just so the folks on Periscope and Facebook know, what happens here in Open Broadcast Studio is I get an aggregate of all of the chats. And so the Facebook and the Periscope people are probably like, Mike, why are you talking to random names? So what happens is I have a chat window, and so I get the YouTube chats, I get the Facebook chats, and I get the Periscope chats. And unfortunately, the other people that are watching, they don't see those rebroadcast. I'm trying to figure out a way to do that with Restream, because obviously Restream takes this and it puts it out into those 3 mediums. It can put it into 20 mediums if I wanted to, but for the most part, everyone just sort of, all my buddies are in Facebook and YouTube, with a few new ones in Periscope. And so I kind of dig Periscope, and not having that on my mobile device, I figured, oh, well, I'll just stream to that too. So in any case, Missouri, that's right. Hey, Joe, that's cool. So if you don't know, or if I've never mentioned this before, Joe, maybe we did talk about it, but I lived in St. Louis. Gary, what's happening, buddy? Gary, are you still in Florida? I can't remember whether you're down there or not. But yeah, so Joe and Gary, so both you guys. So Joe commented from YouTube and Gary commented from Facebook. So Joe, what's interesting about that is Gary was basically the chief engineer for a whole bunch of radio stations, one of which I worked for in St. Louis when I was in St. Louis. And so when I was in St. Louis, I worked for KZK KFNS, which then got bought, was also collaborated with KYKY. And there was also a 3-letter calls one there. I know it's not KGB, and I know it's not KCR. I can't remember the name of it. But my high school was in Massachusetts. I went to high school in Mass. But I was in St. Louis Gary, when was I there? I was there from 94, 95 and 96. I wasn't there more than a year. Sebring, cool. I'll have to look that up on the Goog map and find out where that is. Good for you, man. That's good. Yeah, retired is pretty sweet, right? Working's for suckers, dude. Mallory Hill. Oh my God. Okay, so Mallory Hill is a guy who I met through my buddy Todd in San Diego, and we met out on a boat cruise, basically, in there. And so Mallory, you were living well back then, if I recall, and so I'm happy to say, yes, I am. And so when Mallory makes a statement, you're living well, then you must be. So that's very good. I'm honored you're watching, Mallory. Yeah, so St. Louis was awesome. The people there were fantastic. The weather, unfortunately, did not do well for me. I loved the 2 to 3 weeks in the sort of late spring, early summer. or actually summer, when it was hot and humid and it rained, and it was like really energetic, warm rain. But the winters were winter, and I dislike winter. Well, I mean, I like winter here in Thailand. Oh, and then speaking of which, as far as audio goes, Gary, if you're still there and you're still listening, how's the audio on this thing, dude? Because I bought some lavaliere mics. It was only like $20, but they were fairly decent. And it only came in a set of two. There's like two cables going into the 3.5 millimeter jack. And I don't have like this like noise cancellation. There's basically sort of a default noise cancellation on the Asus Realtek sound card. I don't have that on because that really sort of muffled it. I have this thing called like OCS or something like that. It's not OCD. I've already got that. But and I tested it out, and I'm trying to get rid of some of the echo, which is, thanks, Joe. I appreciate it. Loud and clear. The good thing about Gary is that he has a very similar level of judgment for audio. Yeah, the room reflections, I know, I got to do something like that. Now, naturally, and again, so Gary is actually a well-seasoned, and I don't mean by age, I mean by experience and quality of experience, broadcast engineer. He's also a ham, so if any of you guys in the chat here are radio guys, then you can... If you're not on Facebook watching him chat, you can throw your calls up on the YouTube thing, and I can pass that along to him. But so Gary, so I move in here, right, and I do this, and I'm like, oh man, there's a little bit too much echo. So I immediately start Googling, okay, where can I buy like some sound damping? Like I could probably buy those squares, and then what I'll do is I'll get a hot glue gun and I'll put those on the wall. I'm thinking my girlfriend's gonna be like, okay, these are the ugliest posters. Like I don't know where you get these things, dude. But I was thinking about that. Now the nice thing is that the walls are probably, how do I do this so that it looks, let's see, I'm backwards with my, it's about this thick concrete with, of course, rebar, hopefully, so it won't fall over. But the door is, sort of the standard, almost like pseudo cardboard. Old Severe, dude, I totally remember that. So I'm confident that within the condo, like it's not so bad. But out there on the door, it's probably leaking a little bit through the out into the hallway. Which is okay because I'm one of very few that speak really good English here, and so therefore they're probably like, "What's that weird noise?" Because they don't. It's not Thai, right? Okay, Joe. Seriously, your old call KGB 4507, dude. That's fantastic, man. I was in radio in San Diego for 30 years. I got there in '89, and I left just last year with a brief stint in St. Louis, actually. In Clayton, in the beautiful studios of downtown Clayton, 102.5 KEZK. Man, talk about a cash cow. I mean, we really didn't have that many expenses for this thing, but we were elevator music. We played the stuff that was on The Dentist like all day long. So our TSL, time spent listening, it was like 8 hours a day. So the commercial revenue was pretty regular. After about 5:01 p.m., of course, all the dentist offices closed, so we didn't get a whole lot of that. But we had like nighttime shows, so the revenue was pretty constant, which was nice. You guys want to? Oh, it doesn't say it here. I don't know. You want to see how you write Coca-Cola in Thai? Or actually Coke Light. In the whole rest of the world, it's referred to as Coke Light. Born on the radio way back when. All right, Joe. So bring it. What does that mean? I had my first radio show when I was 14, and I love talking with guys about this. Gary and I used to talk about the good old days of radio. But I don't know about you, but when I was about, I want to say, so I was about 12 years old, I used to walk around the house holding a spatula, talking into a spatula, pretending I was a DJ on, what was the radio? F105 in Boston. And that was a time in radio when FM was not cool, when AM was cool. WRKO was the radio station in Boston that was incredibly popular, as was WBZ. And the up-and-coming FM radio station in Boston at the time was WCOZ, 94.5 WCOZ. Their tagline was kick-ass rock and roll with no BS. I would give my right arm to be listening. WVBFs. Now, see, Gary, how did I know you would know the calls for that, dude? Freaking nice work. Back in 68, dude, I was born in 68. That is, I don't even know. I can't even imagine if there were any FM stations around in 68. But yeah, WCOZ, man, the minute I heard guys on, and this was in Boston again, the minute I heard guys like Harvey Warfield and Jeremy Savage, these were these DJs back then, I was hooked. My mom worked at a library at the local university, and as you may be probably familiar with, most universities have their local radio station. So she takes me into this radio station, or she takes me into work. I walk over to campus and I walk over to the radio station building, and I just stared through the window at the DJ like this. And I'm like 13, 14, and I'm just watching this kid, right? I mean, because it's university, so he's like 18, 19, 20, whatever. And I'm just watching this person like turn knobs, and like they have the headphones on and they're talking. And I look up and there's this tower with an antenna and a transmitter, and I am in heaven. I'm like, this is more important. This is sexier than girls. I mean, I have hit the jackpot. This is the most exciting thing in my life. And all back then, unless you go ham. Yeah, absolutely, man. I totally remember that. I never got into the ham thing, and I'm not quite sure why. Maybe it was because that experience that I had when I was like 12 or 13, and I saw my first FM radio station, the college radio station, and so the DJ, who was, like 18, 19, right, sees this little kid like going like this into the window. I see him get up, and I'm like, okay, I'll wait for him. He comes out the front door, opens the door, and he goes, come here. You don't have to stand out there and look, just like come on inside. And I thought he was going to like totally scold me. All AM unless you go ham, right? Well, the fidelity for me is a little subpar. Now, I know I'm going to catch shit from Gary and you, Joe, but let's just say, and now to be fair, it's not like the fidelity of FM is, awesome, especially compared to like the Macintosh tube amp I had, along with my Klipsch, but in this 40 square meter apartment, I'm not putting a whole lot of 8-inch Klipsch monitors in here, or maybe some near fields. I might put those up, but man, so he lets me in, and I come in, and he's like, well, sit down. So I sat down in the DJ booth, and I am like 3 meters away from one of those old LPB rotary pot mixers, which was about a meter wide, and it had the old black, I think it was 10 channel, and I'm just watching this, from my perspective, this big guy, one of the big kids, is a DJ on the air. And I'm like, oh my God, I want to do this. And, I hadn't heard the phrase yet, but it was like, I will do this for fun and for free. I will do whatever it takes to do this. So I get all excited, and of course my mom is like working somewhere in the library thinking, all right, my 12-year-old son, a 13-year-old son is like wandering somewhere on college campus. Where the heck is he? So I do kind of remember that. I think, oh, I better go back. And so I go back to my mom. Somehow I don't remember the series of events, but the next sort of thing I remember is she organized a meeting with the director of radio. So an actual adult, right? A professor who was like running the radio station. Alan, what was his name? I forget his last name, unfortunately, but his name was Alan. So I go into Alan's office, and I said, oh my God, like I loved it. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I said, I will do anything. I'll like sweep the floors. I'll come in. I'll do whatever you want. I just want to be, something to this. But I remember telling him kind of I remember saying to sweep the floors, and I remember kind of giving I will do anything you want. And he goes, well, if you want to sweep the floors, I'll let you sweep the floors. He goes, what do you want to do? I'm like, I want to be on the air. I want to be a DJ. He's like, all right, come on. So he walks down the hallway, and I'm thinking, okay. And I walk by like the production studio, and there's someone in there doing some stuff, with tape and a razor blade. And I'm like, oh my God. So we go all the way down the end of the hallway, and we go into the on-air studio. Joanne Burchuk was the young lady's name. Of course, she was older than me, so she was a big girl, So goes in, and he said something to the effect of, this is and they had, you know, laminated, not laminated, they had pieces of paper, readings that were inside these little things in a 3-ring binder, and that was in front of the DJ on a metal, on a wooden sort of easel, right? And so the DJ would read those. So he says, all right, sit down and and read that. And I'm like, what? Everybody's listening, right? When in reality, all you're doing is basically talking to this microphone, and you know, I was talking to them. And I think I watched Joanne do it. And then, you know, of course, there were the turntables, right, like to the right, and they were SL1200 MK2s. I remember that. Panasonic, or Techniques, Matsushita's. And so I remember that I put the headphones on and I was listening or whatever, and he turned on the microphone, and I read something, and I was so nervous, and I was sterile, and I read it word for word or whatever, and there was no personality behind it. And I was floating. You know, it was kind of like, hello, this is WMLN dash, I probably didn't say that. It was almost like that, WMLNFM dash 91 period 5. I mean, it was almost that ridiculous, right? Milton, Massachusetts, thank you for listening. You know, I mean, it was like, this robotic, I'm reading the thing, and I think I read it and overread it like 40 times in my mind before I actually said it out loud, so I'd make sure I do it right. I no longer need to use the call numbers anymore on the CB, right? I was contacted by Uncle Charlie telling me not to use the call numbers anymore. Nice. And so I did that, and then walked back to Alan. Oh God, I just had his last name, but I forgot it. I know I could look it up, but he's passed away, sadly. Anyway, so for about, I want to say, and this was in the summer, by the way, so I was off school, right? So I would like go into my mom's work. I would go into work with her, and then I would walk over to the radio station, which was just across campus from where she was working. And so for, I mean, I think at least 2 times a week for weeks, I would go in and I would just sit right next to Joanne, and Joanne would do her show, and I would just watch her. And sometimes her show was like loading up a reel-to-reel, right? And like playing a 45-minute public affairs show, and she would just do that, and I would just sit there and I would just stare. I would just stare at the VU meters. I would stare at the mixer. And I was like, oh my God, this is so awesome. And there was like the entire wall behind her was just albums, right? And then they had like the P1s and the P2s, like, and the currents and the recurrents and everything, and in the bins on the floor, and those were like the more popular songs and everything. And when was this? So the up and coming bands that no one had heard of yet, that were only getting played on college radio. Like 2 hits. Hey, thank you very much. Yeah, 5 watching, 6 watching right now. Cool. 2 likes. Hit the like button. Thank you, Joe. Absolutely. Indeed. Hit the like button. My ego's fragile. I need some help. But that's really cool. I appreciate that. Hello to everyone, actually. So up and coming bands at the time: U2, Psychedelic Furs, Extreme, if you remember those guys. I actually sat in on a live interview with Extreme. And so that was college radio, and of course, and years later it became referred to as alternative radio, with probably K-Rock being a very common label for alternative radio stations, and one that many will know if they are anywhere near Los Angeles. There was also K-Rock in New York, and there was many K-Rocks. 91X was the alternative radio station in San Diego that I just fell in love with. So I did this college radio thing, and then I was given a radio show. And I had my first radio show. I was 14 years old, and I would do that on the weekends. And it's not like I demanded this, but I'm not quite sure why they did this, but they did do this. I was paid. I was actually paid minimum wage to do my show when I would come in on the weekends. And I'm not totally sure. I can postulate on the reasoning behind that, potentially because I wasn't a college student, and therefore 91X, baby. Ryan, how are you, man? I used to work with Ryan at USD. Back when it was cool, because mainly Ryan and I were there, and then after we left, Keishi, that's right. But wasn't there a 3-letter call station in St. Louis that, Gary, that we also got gobbled up by? I'm trying to think. I want to say KCR, but I know that's wrong. Anyway, there was the 3-letter calls. And by the time I left, we had actually, so I was there just around 14 months, right, Gary? And we got bought and sold 3 times. And by the time I left, it was a Clear Channel property. But we started out independent and owned by Jonathan and Bob from San Diego, who owned 2 stations in Phoenix, 2 stations in St. Louis, and 2 stations in San Diego, which was, and Gary, who's there, who's chatting on from Facebook, he was the, no, it wasn't KWK, dude. I know that Keishi was the rocker. That's right. Are you going to make me Google this? You guys are, I have like 5 screens right now. Oh my God, so much pressure. Maybe it wasn't 3-letter calls, Gary. I can't remember. I mean, obviously there was KYKY, and maybe it was Keishi that I was thinking of. Country music, dude, #1 mark. Is that still the #1 format in the U.S.? As far as listenership? I mean, I know like urban got to be really popular and that sort of thing, but I think country music still was really hot, obviously, as far as numbers, ratings, revenue, right? Time spent listening too. Pretty popular in the U.S. But yeah, so that was, and that's, and it's funny. So Gary there mentioned that he had the same experience. For stepping into your first college radio station in 1972. And I can only imagine, man. And, I don't know if any of you, so Ryan, for example, Ryan Flynn, who commented, Ryan was a guy that I worked with at USD. He was in IT and younger than us here. And I don't know if you've had that experience in your career, but I will tell you, that was so awesome, and I really wish that for anybody. I mean, whether that's your career or like, so a couple more other videos that I have on my channel, which if you haven't subscribed to it, it would be really cool if you did. I just got 701 subs, and that was a real honor. I couldn't believe that. That was so cool. I remember when I got 100 subscribers, I was like, oh my God, this is great. It must be my mom and 99 of her friends or something, But no, seriously, it was really cool. And then when I moved out here to Thailand, I was banging up against 400 and then 500, and now Jerry, what's going on, dude? Jerry's from I met Jerry in Coronado. He's up in Oregon now, and he, like all of the other smart people, stopped working in IT. But yeah, the experience I had, and Alan, that guy Alan that I mentioned from the college radio station, he described it. He says, "Oh yeah, you've been bitten by the bug." You've been bitten by the bug of radio. And he didn't put it in a negative way. It's like, oh yeah, you've got the addiction at 702. Joe, you're my hero. Thank you, my friend. I really appreciate it. Because, and the other thing too, guys, right, is that like the way you start in radio is like, okay, I'm going to work for free. Like I will work overnights for free. But anyway, back to my first radio show. So for some reason, they were paying me minimum wage to work on the weekends. And again, I believe it was because I wasn't a full-time student. I wasn't a student there at all, let alone a full-time student. And so I believe that there was some law that he's like working, so we have to pay him minimum wage. And I do remember there were a couple of college students that, and let's face it, when you're in college, it's like, look, dude, I could really use $150. I think that was like my monthly paycheck or something like that. I can't remember how many hours I was working. Maybe it was only $100, but the bottom line is that I was getting paid to do my shift. And I think minimum wage at the time was like $3.65 or something. And I was just like, no, dude, you don't need to pay me. Because I remember my first engineering gig down in San Diego, like really engineering. Like in other words, like my WIL. Yeah, that was the AM, right, Gary? Coming out to the Philippines, work with orphans. Joe, nice work, man. Sadly, your work's cut out for you. You don't have you got a lot of customers that are going to be so grateful that if you just show up, like if you show up with 10 t-shirts, Joe, you know how grateful they're going to be, right? But yeah, maybe that was it. That's true, because if you guys don't know, so St. Louis, right, like the Mississippi was historically where the FCC said, okay, all of you guys to the left, your call letters will begin with K's, and all you guys to the right, your call letters will begin with W's. And so if you're there basically in St. Louis, then a lot of times in that St. Louis market, you would have Illinois radio stations, as we did. Fans 590 WFNS was the transmitter. The license, the city of license was over in Illinois. But the FCC, I can't remember what year, but the FCC relaxed that. And so now basically if you were to start a radio station today in the United States, and I think, remind me, Gary, 1986, I believe, was the year that the FCC said, look, no matter where you start a radio station, you don't have to go K if you're west of the Mississippi, and you don't have to go W if you're east of the Mississippi. But everyone just basically did for new calls. 92.3 WIL. I know it was in the 90s there was the 3-letter call. I swear it began with a K, though. And again, it could be just me having this confusion with KGB. But I swear there was a 3-letter call station in St. Louis that began with a K that was a rocker, but I don't know. Who knows? But yeah, to the okay, I found my, oh my God, 1972, Gary walks into the radio station. Dude, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. Like, this is what I do. I had the same experience, and I was doing engineering for a station in San Diego that was, we had a flamethrower down in Mexico, because of course, what you do in San Diego, because you're so close to the Mexican border, is you throw up a transmitter right at the border and you aim that thing directly north, because there's no friggin' ad revenue in Tijuana. And so we had a license from the Mexican FCC, Secretaría de Comunicación y Telecomunicación, the SCT, for 50,000 watts. Well, guess what I had the transmitter turned up to? Now, of course, this, just so you know, the way that you get licensed for an FM signal, it's ERP, effective radiated power, which basically is the amount of power getting squirted out of your transmitter multiplied by the gain of your FM antenna. And so that is the 50,000 watts. So for the sake of argument, let's say you've got a 25,000 watt transmitter and you've got a gain in your antenna of 2, then you have a 50,000 watt license, right? Well, we had a 50,000 watt license, and I was kicking out about 80,000 watts out of that thing, and it was directional. We were licensed for non-directional. But here's what was awesome, is literally everyone in the industry in that area, because you're part of a tight community, and even though there's competition between stations, all the engineers basically are sort of part of the same sort of fraternity. You refer to those as Mexican watts. So I had 80,000 Mexican watts on top of this antenna in TJ screaming up the coast, and we were doing more than 50,000 watt legally licensed FMs in San Diego. We're blasting up the coast. What am I subscribing to? Not seeing a link. All right, Gary, what I will do is, what I was referring to basically is subscribing to my YouTube channel. So the short answer is, if you go to youtube.com/livemyassoff, KMOX 1120, as far as I know, that was a 50,000 watt. That had 50 gallons, right? That was a flamethrower. You turn that transmitter on, you bend the glass. But what I'll do, Gary, is I'll log into Facebook right now and I'll give you the link. The short answer is youtube.com/livemyassoff, and that will take you to my YouTube channel, and you'll be able to subscribe there. Jen, thank you for. How does this work as far as the comments go? Do I have to hit refresh on Facebook? But anyway, youtube.com/livemyassoff. And if you want to, follow, I also have a blog, but basically the blog, the text content of the blog is simply populated with the description information that gets uploaded to a YouTube video. So let me make sure I put an S here so it doesn't freak out. So that there that I put in the comments, and as far as I know, I can pin it. No, I can't pin this. Was there last week. Oh, thanks, Jerry. Appreciate it. Okay, so here's what I just noticed. So what I just noticed is Fabren. Oh, wait. I'm sorry. I did the wrong thing, and I need to delete that. There was sadly a... oh, boy. There was a shooting here in Thailand, if you guys haven't heard about it. And I apologize, I'm not looking directly at the camera. What I'm trying to do is post something here on my live stream so that people will have the link to my YouTube channel, and then I will see if I cannot pin this to the top, but I don't know if I can do that, so I guess I can't. But regardless, Jerry, thank you very much for subscribing. I really appreciate it. But KSD 93.7, Gary, thank you. I now can honestly say there's a good chance I will remain sober for the rest of the day. Because there was a slight chance, dude, I was going to hit the sauce if I couldn't figure out that. KSD 93.7, absolutely a rocker. Yeah, and so KSD, and what else did we get rolled into? Man, there was a ton of stuff. And by the time I left, but of course you were gone by that time too, Gary, right? But you stayed at Cool AM and FM in Phoenix for a while, I think, after I got back, and then that's when I cruised back to San Diego. For all 8 of you, first of all, thank you very much for subscribing. Sorry, not subscribing, for watching. I don't expect you to subscribe. It would be great, but I don't expect you to. But thank you for watching. But what we're sort of talking about here is the business of radio. And let me be clear, too. What we're also talking about is when radio used to be fun. In my experience, now I left radio, to be fair, in 2003. I didn't lose my passion for radio for several years after that, but it was a few years after that where I really lost it. I tried to stay engaged with it, but I just had 91X, baby. Till 99. Nice, Gary. Right on. Yeah, I left KFMB. I left KFMB in 2000, and I believe I got let go in October of 2002, potentially 2003. I can't remember. And then I did a business in Mexico for 2 years, where I had fixed point-to-point and point-to-multipoint Wi-Fi. And I also did IT consulting in San Diego before then getting my gig at USD in 2005. So. But yeah, 91X was amazing, actually. They had a license for 100,000 watts, and they were blasting about 110, 120,000 fairly directionally north. They had a 10 kilowatt FM transmitter that was turned up to about 10,500, and the gain on that, I think it was a 12 bay. They were getting about 12. They were getting about a 12 to 1, 11 to 1. So they were getting about 110, 120. ERP on that baby. Now I just looked out on the what do you call it, the balcony, and which is where my smartphone is. Which if you don't know, the reason that there's this background image actually is I'm simply using an app on my phone as well as here on the laptop that is called Droid Cam, and so I have Droid Cam client here on the laptop, and I have Droid Cam on the $100 Huawei phone, and I just have it in a selfie stick, and it's just resting basically on the railing there of the thing, and it looking down over the pool. And I thought, oh, I'll leave this out here. Now it's getting direct sunlight from up here at latitude 12, so it may not last much longer. But anyway, actually, I don't know how long this stream has been going. As it turns out. So I actually probably should check into that because I don't want to overstay my welcome here. But I actually, let's see, I'm trying to find out because interestingly enough, what it doesn't do here in OBS You remember the Big I? Well, Gary, let me just tell you, the Big I is streaming strong. Very strong, my friend. THEBIGI.net or BIGI.net. You want to talk about three-letter calls and FM being cool? Talk about a four-letter domain name, buddy. BIGI.net. And we're jamming 24/7. No big whoop. I'm also on TuneIn, actually, if you guys know what that is. Let me see if I can type this in, and it will show up. I can't remember who this shows up for if I type this in. Let's see. Looks like what happens when I put it in is it shows up in YouTube and it shows up on Periscope. So I will cruise over here to Facebook and I'll put it in there as a reply to,
anyway, actually, I don't know how long
okay, the last thing I want to do is listen to myself, which apparent could possibly be a statement that a number of you are making. But yeah. So the Big I is a internet radio station that I started streaming back in 1996. I started doing it with real audio. I started doing it with a 28.8 baud modem because, of course, 19.2 was just not fast enough. and so why is it called the Big I? I learned early on that the word internet, the I in internet was always capitalized, which was pretty cool. And so I thought, well, then my offering should be called the Big I, because the Big I is the internet. And the Big I, the tagline is, the Big I is the only thing on the internet. Tell your friends. And that's been fun. I've gone through so many different audio automation systems. I used Enco for a while, Gary. Real audio did sound great for its time, and if you don't know, real audio is actually, the encoding of that is still, actually, real audio sounded great for its time, Gary. That is an understatement. Because if you think about, I mean, if you had the bandwidth, right? I mean, the compression algorithm for that thing was amazing. But real audio actually is what's used underneath iHeartRadio in their app. It's also used in some other stuff I can't remember too, but if you see RTSP anywhere, right, I mean, that's their streaming protocol. Gary, going to give my story tomorrow. Found a Sunday meaning here, almost as nice as Nato. Going to sign off, dude. See you soon. Jerry, did I say Gary? Seriously? Jerry, thank you very much, man. I really appreciate you. Love you, man. And love you guys. Ooh, my microphone fell. Sorry about that. I've got dual microphones here because basically I want to be as cool as a politician at the podium. I want to make sure you see two lavaliere microphones. Because as you know, my ego is fragile, and with only one lavaliere, well, that's just subpar. And I've tried to like just use one at a time, and they're not like left-right or whatever. They're both, you know, in parallel, effective. They're not in series, yeah. So they're, but so it's interesting. I'm not quite sure how they or why they did that with this, but it's, you know, it's working out good. And I don't know what happens if one fails. Like if I were to cut the wire for one, would the other one get twice as much gain? I don't know whether the impedance would. Probably the sound card has impedance matching, so it probably wouldn't make any difference. But in any case, so yeah, so Jerry I met and Cindy I met in Coronado, and we met there hanging out with a bunch of other friends, and so that's really cool. So and I found a very similar spot to hang out with friends here in Bangkok called the BRC, and so I'm happy to hang out there and hang out with some buddies. So, okay, so Gary made a statement in Facebook. If you guys in YouTube didn't see it, he still streams WIMP radio, which is kind of cute, right? WIMP is cute, but if you don't know, WIMP is sort of a play on words of Windows Media Player, but not publicly to keep IRAA away. So what my streaming software does, Gary, which is SAM, spatial audio, and I also use them for the streaming. I actually do it all in the cloud. I don't do anything on a machine any longer. It's all in their cloud platform, and I think it's like $100 a year or something. They take care of ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, and Sound Exchange reporting automatically. And because I generate zero revenue, and also, as you know, right, basically one of the ways of reporting is based on the amount of traffic you get to your website, which is easily determined by your Apache logs. But for the most part, you can say, okay, well, the amount of people that come to my website is the same as the amount of people that click on the streaming link. Then the automation software can report that to those people. So I don't feel like I'm encroaching in any way. I pay no royalties, and so anyway, that's just my way of sleeping at night. And again, it's just for fun and for free. And in fact, I listen to it here. The way that it totally hobbycast. Yeah, it's pretty fun. And I can't remember what I'm streaming in. I don't think it's 64 kilobits a second. It might be, but anyway, I listened to it, and I had some company actually out of, I think it was Poland. They wrote me an app, so I had an app in the App Store and Google Play Store for a while with the I logo, right? And that was kind of cool, but I was like, and then they hosted, and there was a charge to it, but I'm like, whatever, I don't really need this, because it's available in TuneIn, and TuneIn is infinitely more reliable, and the spatial audio automation, if it fails, right, then it just waits 60 seconds and it kicks off again, so I don't have to touch it ever. It's kind of cool, but that's kind of fun, and the gratefully the penetration of cellular service here is so decent that, I listen on my phone. I just have my Bluetooth headset, and I just listen as I'm walking around Bangkok. Like I'm in the not the subway, but basically, for the sake of argument, the subway. It's the SkyTrain here, but it's the subway that you'll be able to, the BTS. I'll be able to listen to that and walk around and listen to my own radio station, walk through parks. It's kind of cool. I do need to upload some new music. But for the most part, it's like kind of EDM / not really heavy metal, but like sort of like hard rock type stuff, with some occasional flashbacks to like AC/DC or classic ZZ Top or whatever. But anyway, so that's the big I, and so that's so Gary and I started doing internet broadcast actually a while ago. Before that was cool. Gary, I don't know if you know this. When I was at KFMB, right, I was really into it. I was really into internet broadcast. And so I thought, well, I'll just do this with KFMB, right? Well, it so happened that at the time, our AM 760 KFMB, we were the station for the Padres, the San Diego Padres, and it was also the same year that the San Diego Padres went to I almost just said Super Bowl just then. The San Diego Padres went to the World Series, and so obviously we were broadcasting live and everything like that. And I said, well, you know what? So what I should do, and we actually we were hosting our own website at the time, up at an AT&T data center. We were spending money, and we had a rack, we had a cabinet there, and we had a bunch of at the time we had a bunch of brand new HP DL380, I think, servers, and we had a T1 coming in. So we were living in Fat City, and so I downloaded the Real Audio encoding software and the Real Audio server, and I streamed the World Series in Real Audio, and we had a link to that up on our website. And I didn't really think anything of it. Well, at about Game 6, I got a cease and desist letter from MLB, from Major League Baseball. Matthew, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you. That said, you can't do that because, again, of course, this is an additional stream, right? So this is effectively another stream of revenue that they're losing out on that we're not licensed for. But of course, nobody's streaming the baseball on the internet. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll stop. But I'll tell you what, I got 8,500 concurrent people listening. So if you want to figure out a way to monetize it, go for it. Just let me know, because I can tell you those 8,500 people, they're absolutely listening through the commercials that we're playing. We're not monetizing it, so we're morons. But at the time, no one knew how to do that, right? And then, of course, it turned into, the monetization was a complete disaster, because they said, well, if you're paying union dues and you have union guys, then you have to, and then people realize, look, dude, no one's going to sit through a stop set of 460s on the internet. Like, you got to do 15-minute spots if you're lucky. But anyway, yeah, I guess I was the first person to at least get caught streaming the World Series on the internet. So I'm bummed, because I've told that story to a bunch of people, and every time I tell it, I think to myself, I should have saved that cease and desist letter. I don't believe it was sent directly to me. I can tell you that our legal counsel handed it directly to me and said, okay, chief engineer, what the hell does this mean? Because, of course, they're like, internet streaming. What does that mean? Do you have a website that has naked girls on it? Or, like, for the love of God. Because actually, if you don't know, what they discovered was the majority of those people that were streaming it were actually listening to it on their phones inside of the stadium. There were also a bunch of people inside the stadium with radios listening to the play-by-play on the AM. But, let's face it, right? I mean, the quality of the audio on the AM inside there, because of all the RF interference, was lousy. Whereas, for voice, all you got to do is shoot out like a 5 kilohertz audio stream, and you get voice at a decent enough. And we were compressing the heck out of the audio, because of course we had to shoot it out of our AM transmitter. So anyway, it was a really good experience. And, if you don't know, the Padres didn't go to the World Series the next year. Shocker. So it's not like we had a chance to do it all over again, So it wasn't like I'm like, oh, I better go out and get all the legal framework in place. I'm like, yeah, I don't think they'll be going back. So anyway, that was kind of an interesting thing. So Matthew is a buddy that I used to work with, who just chimed in there on Facebook. So Matthew, if you're wondering what $400 a month buys you, it's this view from my 10th story apartment onto that pool. And the reason there's no one there is because it is 11 in the morning, and at 11 in the morning in Thailand, it's hot as hell. And the sun is intense, and the only people that want to lay out in the sun and get hotter and get darker are crazy white people. And Thais are like, "Are you insane? Why would you want your skin darker?" And I'm like, "Well, we actually pay to get sprayed with dark ink, so that we can go to parties. Even in Southern California, we don't go to the beach. We get spray tanning, because that's fashion." So. Yeah, pretty nice, right? $400 a month. And get this, right? So I have solid fiber into my house here, into my condo here. 50 megabits down, 20 megabits up, $9.63 a month. Boom. Not bad, right? And it actually works. It doesn't drop out. So Gary says he's using the Orban encoder and the 1100, if you guys know what that is, with Oganowski's Stream iOS app. So he makes an app. So I can't listen to it on, and I keep in touch with Oganowski, actually. Greg Oganowski, for any of you that know anything about technology and radio, Greg Oganowski is, first of all, an amazing guy. If any of you know anything about cool people, Greg Oganowski, if you ever get a chance to meet him, he's an awesome guy. Secondarily, he's technically brilliant and was able to design the majority of the circuitry and the outstanding audio result of a lot of the Orban processors. Orban being arguably one of the 2 top processors that radio stations use, and TV as well, but for their audio. But the Orban processor was really, just the longevity of that company has been so. So you've got the encoder, which is that the PCI card, Gary, with the 1100? How much of that is software and how much of that is hardware? Davey Smith 2.0, what's going on? Another guy that I worked with at USD. Right on, man. You know that I left, right? You know that I got sane, right? Matthew asks, am I going to buy a house in Thailand? So the short answer is no. The longer answer is no, because I can't. So foreigners are not allowed to own physical property. So I cannot own a house that way. Now, I can buy a house, and I can own what's called a house via having a yellow book, meaning I can sort of have ownership of the physical house that is on the land. I cannot own the land, so I would have to have a lease agreement on the land. Yeah, indeed. Yeah, most of my... It's funny, Davey, I stayed there as long as I could. The main reason I left recently is because the leadership, the CIO, and while Chris, you could argue, he was bad or good in various areas, I got along with him. He tolerated me. I mean, I'm certainly imperfect, but the previous CIO was okay. And my relationship with him and my direct boss was the director was fine. But a new CIO, so Chris left to go to work for Dell Technologies, if you don't know. But he and I remained, in touch. But a new CIO came in, and he was a complete idiot, is the short answer. We brought him, the organization brought him out of retirement. He'd already been in retirement 2 years, and he was just totally ignorant, sadly, to what was needed in technology in 2019. Or he was brought in 2018, and he was unaware of what was needed in technology in 2015. But he was there in 2018. He was supposed to be interim, and then his interim got longer and longer and longer. And I said, okay, this is a disaster. And Davey, Chris was a weird guy, but nice to me. Yes, Davey, well, one could argue that I was the same way. Although I hope at least I was nice to you. I intentionally was nice to you. I hope I didn't. I didn't appear as mean to you. It was sort of fun working with you, actually. And Davey, I will credit you for giving me the best advice that I never took. And I kick myself a lot for not doing that. Davey Smith, ladies and gentlemen, says to me in probably 2008, he says, Mike, just buy $100 worth of Bitcoin. When Bitcoin was, ladies and gentlemen, one Bitcoin was $1 US. Yep. So, always take the financial advice of those younger than you when it involves spending $100, because I've got $100. All of us on this chat right now could throw $100 into a trash can and walk away, and our lives would be no different. Absolutely 100% no different. So, I hope you spent those $100, Davey, and I hope you held until about almost 2 years ago, because that was the time to sell, wasn't it? Anyway, yeah, so that changed significantly at USD. And true on the taking the advice of those younger than you. I'll tell you, the greatest thing about working around people that are younger than you is because those people are naive enough and crazy enough to think that they're going to change the world, which means they will. So listen to them. Yeah, this new CIO is definitely a different tack in leadership, which is interesting. I don't know if you guys know, but I have this Master of Science in Executive Leadership. That was the master's program that I went and got. So what does that mean? So basically that means is that I have effectively an MBA that focused on the leadership skills that you need to sort of lead internally, lead a team, and then lead an organization. So it was more focused on that than it was sort of the business process and procedure. It was more on the people that are necessary to be world class. Because obviously the leverage that you gain by surrounding yourself with people that are infinitely smarter and better and more focused on the goal than you are, that's great. But as a leader, you got to define the goal and you got to motivate the people and you got to keep them focused on it. So that's where I went. And if you don't buy this, then I'll just say it for me. When I'm led by a leader that I believe has no integrity and no intestinal fortitude and ability to really just have at least a glimpse of what the future is, then I can't stick around. And so that is sadly what happened at my last place of work. Is there were statements made behind closed doors, not the least of which is, oh, by the way, when we close this door, like nothing outside this door, it never happens. We won't say anything outside this door. This is private, that sort of thing. And sort of when people lead with that, I mean, that's fine if you're at a gynecologist, but if you're at in a leadership meeting for your organization where 2 hours prior, that same leader said, I'm going to lead with transparency. And I'm going, oh my God, anyone who emphasizes in a big room the fact that they're going to lead with transparency, You don't need to lead with transparency. You need to behave with transparency so that people label you as leading with transparency. You don't tell people, I'm going to tell the truth. Hey, just so you know, I'm going to tell the truth. No, just tell the truth. Let other people tell. Anyway, don't even get me started. Yeah, Doug's still there. I mean, why would Doug leave, dude? He's going to retire like in a year. So, you know, as long as he basically just says, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir, then he's good. But to be fair, I mean, I retired. Anyway. Doug is doing what Doug is doing, and he's made a great decision for his life, and I think that that's awesome. Chris, the guy who jumped out of a window, is an earthquake. And so here's a funny story. So there's the CIO that we hire, and this is back in 2006, and he comes from Rhode Island, where there are no earthquakes. Now, to be fair, if there was a snowstorm with 30 feet of snow in San Diego, he probably would have been laughing at you guys. But to be fair, there was an earthquake. And he freaked out, and he jumped out of his window. It was in his office, and denied it, which was more of the joke than anything else. And so he like kicked the screen out and jumped out of his, out of his bottom story. I mean, it wasn't like he like jumped out of the window and fell 30 stories. He jumped out of the window and, he walked out of the window effectively. But a lot of people remember him that way and kind of give him crap. And so that was kind of funny. Yeah. So that was the Chris. But, I'll tell you something. After he left USD, he became, I'm not going to say a good friend, but he certainly moved into acquaintance plus one. I mean, he and I talked about some, actually that's not true. In the last few years of him working at USD, he and I talked about some fairly personal stuff, and he actually opened up. And he changed like we all do, right? I mean, my judgment of it is he changed for the better, in the sense that I think he started caring for people's feelings a lot more. And whether that was selfishly because he's like, if I actually care for people's feelings, they'll actually get more stuff done for me. I don't know whether he made that conscious contact or whether he was just like, maybe I should just be a nicer person because, as it turns out, life's better that way. So anyway, wait, I was just scrolling up. Oganowski spends a lot of time in Thailand also, Gary? Dude, I gotta reach out to him. I have to have, I must have his contact info. Is it still Orban at? Dude, PM me. I mean, you don't have to throw his personal email up. But when I was working with Rich Brother Robin, who is also another sort of, I'm not going to say world famous, but certainly fairly famous, old-time DJ, if you guys knew Shotgun Tom Kelly. Shotgun Tom Kelly is basically the Wolfman Jack of San Diego. So let's just say that. Rich Brother Robin is also a fairly famous older DJ. And so when he set up his own sort of 50s radio station streaming on the internet, Gary, I actually helped him do that out of his house in Point Loma. And Oganowski, who pinged me, and he says, hey, dude, is the Big Eye still running? I can give you some gear. And I said, no, I'm going to the cloud, dude. I'm going to the cloud. I'm the cloud evangelist for everything in the cloud. The fact that I actually have to use an actual PC with software installed on it right now to do this broadcast is bumming me out. But OBS is only available for download. They don't offer it in a cloud version. I've tried to install it in an Amazon Workspace, but unfortunately, I can't get video through an Amazon Workspace, which is very disappointing because the Amazon Workspaces, AWS Workspaces, are great. My third USD was the senior. Yes, Davey, I completely acknowledge that, and I understand because as you know, my house was physically next to hers. And I sadly heard a lot of her conversations with the people who reported to her on the org chart, and it was sad to hear some of the way that she spoke with the people that basically made her job viable. Because let's face it, guys, any of us that are in any degree of management role or leadership role, the only reason we have the honor, the only reason that we have the justification for going to work and collecting a paycheck is because we're supporting the people that report to us that report to us on the org chart. We're there to make their lives better. And to Davey and Matthew, I mean, if you guys don't know, the only reason I stayed any longer than I stayed at USD is for my guys. I mean, I got up in the morning and I'm like, what can I do to make my guys better? Because my guys were self-managing. And let's face it, I used to come to Thailand for like 4, 5, 6 weeks at a time. It's not like the IT systems broke. I mean, my guys had that. I designed, they were self-managing, they were empowered. Those guys, if I called them at 2 in the morning, they didn't pick up the phone, oh my God, and I didn't lead with, oh my God, guys, I'm really sorry, it's 2 in the morning. They answered the phone with, what do you need? Because it wasn't like I was calling them to say, hey bro, you want a pizza? No, if I was calling at 2 in the morning, there was a freaking reason, and we were gonna like fix something now. And my guys were obsessed with uptime, and I just honor them. And if any of you ever have any need to hire anyone who is in the IT infrastructure business, then you need to reach out to my guys who are primarily all connected with me on LinkedIn, because they're the most wonderful friggin' guys in IT that I've ever had the pleasure to work with long term. And so is Davey and Ryan. I just didn't work with them that long, sadly. Yeah, I need to go talk to Grego, totally. And if wouldn't it be funny, dude, if he's like over here right now? I'd pick him up and be like, hey, so Gary Blau from Florida tells me that you're like 9 kilometers from me or something. Oh, good for you. I'm glad you're making money and free benefits. That's really good. I'm sorry that you have hatred for your previous place of work, but dude, look at it this way. If nothing else, you and I are connected on Facebook because we met there, and yeah, it sucked, but I agree. And yes, Davey, micromanagement sucks. And here's what's amazing. So here's one for you. So my director pulls me into his office, and this is after I've gotten, my guys, and they're, the engine is churning, right, whether I'm there or not. And he says, okay, so the CIO wants you to spend less time on the cloud. And you guys that have worked with me, you know that I'm mildly cloud focused. Let's just say I'm obsessed with it, because it's the future, right? And I'm the chief cloud evangelist. Just ask me. And so anyway, so Doug, who you guys know, he says to me, look, the CIO wants you to spend, you ready for this? 10% of your time on the cloud and 90% of your time managing your staff. And I was like, okay, are there like cameras around here? Is this like some joke? Is there someone who just like spun up a YouTube channel? Is there like some skit on Saturday Night Live called The Micromanager that we're like filming for right now, and you want to see my response? I'm like, you're joking, right? You want me to spend 90% of my time managing my staff? So I tell my staff that, and they're like so offended. They were like, what are you going to do, babysit us? And I'm like, no. I'm like, you guys need anything, you come to me. They're like, I know. So anyway, and Matthew says that he was there 20 years and was a waste of time. I understand why you're saying that, buddy. I completely can empathize with how frustrated you must be. But I would submit to you that it wasn't a waste of time. It was a learning experience, and hopefully you take that learning experience onto your next one, because at the end of the day, I know how much you care for your daughter. And in those 20 years, you were able to provide your daughter. And while your job probably sucked and you came home at the end of those sucky days that you had at work, you were able to hug your daughter and you probably made her smile. So it wasn't a waste of time. It was just a misuse. Let's say that. Best IT executive I had the privilege of working for. What? You're the buddy that Davey and I are talking to? Talking about? I don't know. Anyway. Yeah, my guys. Here's Matthew. Matthew says my people love me, and I would submit that the only reason is because I earned their respect. I like to think. I certainly didn't. The beatings certainly didn't continue until morale improved. Man, yeah, I miss my guys, man. I mean, here's what's funny. I don't know if you guys know this. Towards the end, they moved me out of my office and they moved me into a cubicle, into my guys' room. And I always hated how my guys were in cubicles. I hated anyone who was in cubicles. It's amazing how much data is out there on how inefficient people can be if they work in cubicles or they work in cube farms, especially when they have the ones where they're like, oh yeah, we're going to be in this team, and they put them in cube farms where like the the walls only go this high and they have like this open floor plan. It's such bullshit, especially when you're in IT, dude. I mean, you're coding, you get distracted. You get distracted by 10 seconds. That is 2 hours of work that you're just like, wait, what? No, You need an office where you need to close. And if you guys know anything about me, the way the guys down in telecom used to refer to what I would do a lot of times is, oh yeah, Mike's is in his office yelling at the wall. Because basically I would get really excited and I would have my headset on and I would be on a conference call. I would be like, and I would usually stand up. So I had like a stand-up desk and I would be standing up and I would be like, looking at the screen, right? Which is like basically the wall. And they're like, yeah, Mike's in his office screaming at the wall. So that was me on a conference call, getting USD amazing deals on IT infrastructure that they didn't deserve. I think it... Ryan says he just vomited in his mouth. Nice work. Yeah, well, it's... So Ryan and Davey are going back and forth over a previous manager they had. Just so you guys know, my Facebook is not public, and your friend there is not one of my friends on Facebook, so. Nor one of my connections on LinkedIn. Because let's just say I don't believe I can add value to her career by being connected with her on LinkedIn. How's that? So what's funny is that I knew that like leaving would be cool, right? And the good news is that I didn't have to do it and be like, oh shit, I got to get the hell out of here, and I have like no money or whatever, right? I didn't make $5 an hour at USD. I didn't make $100 an hour. But the nice thing about USD is that it gave me the opportunity to do a lot of other stuff. Because I don't know about you guys, Davey and Ryan, I don't know where you guys are. Davey, I know that you're like a manager or a director in some, oh, thanks, Gary. Cool. I'm totally stoked. I'm going to definitely send Greg an email. As far as I know, you're a director somewhere in an IT shop. I'm not sure whether your company is a technology company, but I believe you are in charge of technology at a company. I'm not quite sure. Ryan, I cannot remember what you are doing. There was a part of me that recalls you being involved in the service, but that might have just been like ROTC or something at USD. Anyway, I totally apologize. I mean, I've slept since then, so that's how I blame my lack of brain cells. They don't grow back, as it turns out, and so a misspent youth got rid of more than I would have liked. Yeah, so I had enough money to basically retire, kind of, in the sense that here, I mean, I don't have enough money to retire in Coronado and not be distracted by the cost of stuff. But I've been keeping track of what it costs to live over here, and to give any of you that care an idea of what it basically costs to live, I consider it very comfortably. For $2,000 a month, that I'm living really great. Oh, San Diego City. Nice, dude. That's good, Matthew. That's really cool. One of my buddies, or two of my buddies actually used to work down there, one of which went on to work at NetApp. Or actually, no, three. One of them works at NetApp, one of them works at VMware, and then the other one went on to work at EMC, who now works for Dell Technologies. And so, yeah, it's a great, and in fact, one of the guys that was working at San Diego City, Rick Shear was his name, who also is the guy that went on to work at Dell Technologies. He was one of the guys that helped us first put VMware in, actually, at USD. So, yeah, pretty cool. And yeah, I'm sure the benefits are stellar. That's great. So good for you, man. Good for you. That's great. I mean, and hopefully you still get to spend quality time with your daughter. Your daughter, I'm going to say she's 15, 16. Gracie's daughter is 13. And of course, I've mentioned in a couple of my videos, my plan for her is that she goes to university in Singapore. Her plan is to get a mountain bike. So, somewhere in the middle, I'm sure we'll meet halfway. I'm actually quite certain that the plan will be that she gets a mountain bike, and then eventually we will discuss what she wants to do and if she wants to go to university. She says that she wants to be an engineer, but I think that's just because Tito Mike was an engineer. I'm sure if I told her that, being an engineer is easy, just shave your head, that wouldn't work for her. But anyway, oh my God, this is so great. There's still 9 of you. I mean, I could keep going, but this is getting sort of long. And so unless you guys have any objection, I'm going to sign off and say thank you very much. I know that it's like 8:30. 18, holy God. Oh, dude, UCSD, good for you. That's an awesome school, dude. Honestly, you know what's funny about that is that I love like the college experience and that sort of thing. And that was one of the reasons I stayed at USD. But USD, one could argue if you're there, I mean, it basically feels like a university, but surrounded by a giant spa. But UCSD feels like a college campus, dude, that really gets some stuff done. And to give you an example of how much I just love being in the college environment, I would purposely get stuff from Amazon shipped to the boxes up there. So I could go to the Amazon, it's not called Amazon store, but whatever that's called, where the Amazon lockers, right? So I could go up there to pick up my package. So just so I could go up on campus, then I'd pick up my package, throw it in the car, and then I would get like an hour parking, and I would just like walk around just because I love the environment, man. UCSD is a university. They are a world-class university, and I don't know about you guys that if you're still on here from USD, but like, how many times did you tell someone, oh yeah, I work at University of San Diego? They're like, oh, UCSD? Wow, that's a really good, like, no, USD. They're like, so USD? Like, yeah, we're the really expensive one. So I miss you too, brother. All right, guys, I'm going to sign off. Thank you so much for watching. I'm totally stoked. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it. 702 subs, which is totally awesome. YouTube.com/live my ass off. And as I always say, I don't just say it because I think it's a really cool bumper sticker or a t-shirt. I swear to God, man, if you're not living the dream, you're doing it wrong. It's so much easier to live the dream. So it's Mike from livemyassoff.com saying I hope you're living the dream. Ciao.